Hi guys, my name is Johnny Pollock and I'm the pastor of Calvary Church Loughrea. And as I explained in our video yesterday, we're going to start taking a look through this little book, the Word OnetoOne, and we're going to get to grips with the Gospel of John and how to read and understand the Bible that we can do in and of our own time. So I don't know how long this video is going to last, but I hope it'll be short enough that we can watch it all in one sitting and we can get to grips with the beginning of the Bible as it is laid out. As I said, this Word OnetoOne is a book that has been developed by a couple of people and I want to give them the credit. So here is the copyright information for it. As you can see, you can pick it up from 10ofthose.com, or alternatively, you can get the free notes that I recommend that you get for this. And if you haven't, you can get them at theword1to1.com. That's word1to1.com. And you can pause the video, go and get some of the notes. You can either put it on your device or whatever, and then you can read along with us. If you don't have access to that, or a printer or another device, I'll be putting the slides up so we can do it along with each other, and you can also read it in your own time. The Gospel of John is a fantastic gospel because it gives us an insight of who Jesus is from someone who has been walking with him and been very close to him as one of his disciples and followers. And so I suppose without further ado, let's get into the Word OnetoOne in our first chapter today. And the introduction here, as you can see, just tells us why the Word is a title that's used to speak about Jesus. It might be a strange title for some of us, but we're going to see that in our first study today, why this word is so vital. And as we read through the Gospel of John together each day, we'll discover that we are actually hearing the words of Jesus written down by John, and that's how we learn who Jesus is. And so why one-to-one? And I know that we are not doing this one-to-one. It's me to a video and then hopefully some of you watching it. But reading the Bible is an incredibly good practice to do, not only on our own, but with others, as we hear different points of view and we read about different things that we pick up from the passage itself. So the first thing that we're going to look at here is John's overview of his book. Like any author, he gives us a bit of a description of why he writes it. And from verse 1 to 18 of chapter 1, it starts with an overview of everything. There's a lot going on in this section, as it says here. And we may need to pause it and have a look now and again at some of the verses. One of the strange things, as it says here, is that John's Gospel does not start like Matthew's or Luke's. It doesn't start with no angels, no Bethlehem, no stable, no baby Jesus, no wise men. It starts straight in with God coming to earth and the overview of what this means. So we're going to see some amazing beginnings. What I want to do is to read just the passage on the left hand side and then take a look at some of the notes there, and then basically walk through on the right hand side the little notes that have been placed along with us. So it says in John chapter 1 verse 1, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." So some of the things that we see here is that John, in the bottom section there, that the Word existed before time, before creation, before the beginning. And so this Word, he is eternal. And you can see that from the little blue phrase at the top. The word is used over and over and over again. It's used 3 times in the first verse. And so this word is to be paid attention to. And so the question then at the end of verse 1 is, well, if the word is a person in a sense, well, who is that person? As I said, John stresses twice on the right hand side, you'll see this, that the word was there in the beginning. Verse 1, the Word was with God and was God. Verse 2 tells us so this word is a person. Verse 3, the Word who is God and a person, well, he made everything. And then John claims something even further for the Word. In verse 4, say, in him was life, so he's the source of life. He is also the answer for life, and he is eternal life. And so this makes sense because John has just said that this word is a person. He is with God. He is a creator, and he is the source of life, the answer of life, and eternal life. And so this word is being built up. He is being built up to be someone majestic and amazing. And verse 5, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. So 2,000 years later, the light of the world still outshines the darkness. And the amazing thing is, we still don't know who that word is. Now, John is telling us here in these 5 verses about all the characteristics of the word, about the amazing nature of the word, but he still has yet to tell us who it is. And so as we go on to verse 6 to 9, we go away from the word, in a sense, and we go towards this man called John the Baptist. And he is introduced and explained to us. Verse 6, there was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify concerning that light, so that through him all might believe. He himself was not the light. He came only as a witness to the light. The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. So we are then introduced to the light, not just the word, but now the light in verses 6 to 7. And how we're introduced to that light is that this man, John the Baptist, he was sent by God to point to the coming of this light. Now, a bit later on in the chapter, what we're going to see is that John was a bit of a sensation. He preached in the wilderness. He was, I suppose, a very charismatic man. He preached wonderful teachings and told people the truth in all circumstances. And I suppose he would have been all over the news and trending on social media because of all the things he was doing. And so the leaders, as we'll see later on, sent people to check this John out. But John is not the word. I think that's the amazing nature of both what John, the writer, is telling us here, and John the Baptist, who is introduced to us here, is that he is at pains to say that John is neither the word or the light. As it says in the little yellow box, through John the Baptist, God goes out of his way to make sure the coming of the word is publicly known. So John the Baptist is there to testify to this word, testify to this light, and yet we are still no clear on who it is. It says in a little circle there at the bottom of the page, we still haven't been told who the word is. And maybe you're starting to realize who this word is. You're starting to have the picture built to us. And yet as we go through to the next section, we are going to see how the word is treated. Verse 10, it says, he was in the world, and through him the world was made through him. The world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet to all who did receive him, and to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Children born not of natural descent, nor of human decision, or a husband's will, but born of God. So, in verse 10 and verse 10, 11, 12, and 13, we get to see the word snubbed. There's a rejection of this word. The first rejection we see in verse 10 is that the world did not recognize him. So the world and all the people in it did not recognize this word when he came. Verse 11, he came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. And so his own here are the Jewish people. And so the reality is, if everyone is rejecting this word, is rejection the only response? Well, no, because as we see in verse 12, some people did receive him. And when the people did receive him, there's a unique and awesome gift for those who not only receive him, but accept him there in verse 12. Firstly, they are adopted into his family. And you know, you can imagine being adopted into this wonderful royal family or a really influential and wealthy family. And yet God offers something bigger. That phrase in verse 12, it says here, he gave the right, that this word gives us the right not only to become part of a royal family or an influential family, but part of God's family. And not only the right to become part of an influential or amazing family, but verse 12, to become children of God. As it says in the little yellow box there, this is a right to a family wealth beyond your wildest dreams. This father is richer than a multi-trillionaire. So all the things that we crave after, being part of a better family or a bigger family or a more influential family or a wealthier family, what we're told in verse 12 is that this word, to those who receive him, to believe in his name, we have the right to become the children of God. Verse 13 tells us something incredibly encouraging as well. So if we think about who got this right, to those who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, what type of people are they? Well, verse 13, it says that they're not people born into a religious family, not because of the background that we are in. Not people who somehow became religious, whether it's through an attitude change or a moral shift. But verse 13 tells us, but they are people who are born of God. Now, we're going to unpack a lot of these things as we go through, and it's important not to stop, but to actually read and see what it says. And so as we went through these verses, we get to see this word that is rejected, the people who have accepted and received him, that have the right to become the children of God, and not people because of their background or abilities, but people who have been born of God. And what we see then, verse 14, is God's glory. Because if it's God's right to give us rights for this adoption into the family of God, well, we're going to learn more about this word. Verse 14 says, the word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. So John goes back and tells us more about this word. He's not telling us about the light anymore. He's not talking about John the Baptist anymore. He's not talking about the family of God anymore. He returns to talk about the word and tell us a little bit about him. So basically what he tells us is that God comes down to earth as a man. And John wants us to know that he was a first-hand witness. This isn't a story he was told. This wasn't something he read in a newspaper. This was something that he experienced personally. That this word is glorious. The middle of verse 14 says, we have seen his glory. But it's the glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father. So this word, now the light, now the one who will be snubbed but yet will give the right to be the children of God, he is actually God's Son. And I think this is incredible because, as it says there in the little paperclip part, it's surprising that the word doesn't arrive in a whirlwind of power and might. Instead, John says the word comes full of grace and truth. And those two words are helpfully explained to us in a little yellow box. Grace is God's undeserved kindness and love freely given. So grace is not deserved. It's something that is completely undeserved and a gift of God's kindness and love. And truth there is basically the truth, absolute truth, the answer to all of our searchings, the true truth of life. And so he comes as a gift of God's grace, undeserved kindness and love, and he comes in truth with all honesty, the answer to all of our searching. And so we have this word, and he's being built up as the creator, as the sustainer, all of these wonderful things. So if it is God's Son, what is his name? And I would imagine that you're probably answering your screen right now. Verse 15, the truth is then out. Verse 15, John testified concerning him. He cried out saying, this is the one I spoke about when I said, he who comes after me has surpassed me because he was before me. Out of his fullness we have all received grace in place of grace already given. For the law was given through Moses, grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. So again, we go back. John the Baptist said he was not the light, but was testifying to the light. And now John testified that he was not the Word. And John's job was to point to the Word. And he said, he has surpassed me because he was before me. Verse 15 and 16 basically say that the Word is greater than John the Baptist. Well, why? Well, because the Word is the Creator God. And God has already given grace in the Old Testament, those books from Genesis to Malachi. And now we see his grace in all of its fullness. Why? Because the Word has come and his name is Jesus. Verse 17 tells us about God's law and all its rules and regulations. And this law was given through Moses in verse 17, but Jesus will be fulfilling it. And that's what we'll see through the rest of the Gospel of John. And verse 17 very clearly states the reality that who is the Word? Well, he is God's Son, Jesus Christ. And Jesus is not about rules and regulations and bringing more law, but he brings again grace, the undeserved kindness and love of God, freely given, and truth, the eternal truth of God. So as we summarize here, we have verse 18 that says, no one has ever seen God, but the one and only Son, who is himself God and is the closest relationship with the Father, he has made him known. And as we'll see in a little bit before, the himself, the fact that he has made him or himself known, well, that's Jesus. Basically, a helpful translation of this would be, he, Jesus, has made him, God, known to us. So as we summarize this all, we can figure out what we have learned about Jesus, who is the Word. Well, verse 1, he was there from the start in the beginning. Verse 1 and 2, he was with God. Verse 1 again, he is God. Verse 3, he made everything. Verse 4, he gives life now and forever. Verse 4 and 9, he gives us understanding for life. John calls this his light. Verses 10 and 11, he was rejected by the world and his own people, including the Jews. Verse 12, to those who receive him, he gives them the right to be part of his family. Verse 14, he came to earth as a man. Verse 14 again, John, who wrote this book, was an eyewitness to Jesus. Verse 17, Jesus comes full of grace rather than earthly power. And verse 17 again, he brings all truth. Now, I don't know about you and your imaginations of Jesus, but it's a lot more than this Sunday school picture of gentle Jesus, meek and mild. John says Jesus, the Word, is the all-powerful Creator God, full of grace and truth. And over the next while, we're going to be walking through John's Gospel to try and get a sense of who Jesus is, more about who he is, not just this Word who has come in the world in flesh to reveal God to us, full of grace and truth, but how he lived and how he ministered among people. The verses are on there from verse 1 to 18 again. And in your own time, I think if you want to read through it again. And tomorrow, what we're going to be looking at is the next few verses in John's Gospel. We're going to see a glimpse into the life of John the Baptist as he comes onto the scene and what this means as well. So tune in again tomorrow as we walk through the Word OnetoOne. As I said before, if you haven't got a chance to download it or to get a copy of it, please go to Word OnetoOne, that's number 121.com, and I'll put the link below that you can get access to the materials and begin to read along with this wonderful Bible study with us. I hope you're doing well, being at home and being shut in a bit. And again, if there's any way we can pray for you or encourage you during this time, please get in touch. But let us know how you're getting on. Let us know any questions that you have. And tomorrow, before we start, I'll have a look at some of those questions as we walk through our look at the Gospel of John together. God bless.